What a difference one generation makes. When the Wii U was in its final year, the pickings were somehow even slimmer than usual. In the summer of 2016, Nintendo brought just one single game to E3, and while you might expect that from a bomb, the truth is that the waning days of most Nintendo consoles do slow down. The tide rolls out as the next gen approaches. So I went into this June's Direct with tempered expectations. And those expectations got cracked out of the park because it turns out Nintendo is still swinging for the fences. This is more than likely the Switch's last year as the flagship console, but it sure doesn't feel like it. Now, that's a great sign in and of itself. But this kind of focused attention makes me ever more hopeful that their next system really will maintain backwards compatibility and even parity with this one. And since there's a couple of things I want to talk about, I'm going to do it in the style of a traditional internet classic, the countdown. Now let me temper your expectations. Just because something you're excited for isn't on this list doesn't mean I hate it, and it might not even mean I don't care about it. Case in point, I am so glad that Zelda fans are finally getting a new top-down game after 11 years. And that Zelda herself is finally in the starring role for the first time ever. Or for the first time in 30 years if you're a real fan. The new gameplay mechanics look intriguing. I'm definitely looking forward to it. I'll definitely play it when it's out. It's just that I'm not usually that much of a Zelda guy. With that in mind, here are my top 5 most hyped games of the June 2024 Nintendo Direct. It's been a hot minute since I did one of these. If only there was some template I could follow. Not that I would ever try to rip off Screw Attack. Number 5. I've always been on record as someone who loved NES Remix, the Wii U era duology that made some bite-sized challenges out of a bevy of 8-bit classics. But I've always been a little disappointed that they didn't keep that momentum going and do more with the concept. By which I mean I really just wanted a Super NES Remix. But if Nintendo's good at anything, it's giving you what you weren't asking for and making you thank them for it. Because Nintendo World Championships NES Edition looks more like my bullshit every time they show it. I wasn't totally sold at first, but 2 things pushed me over the edge. Legend challenges seem to be much longer and more specific than the typical bite-sized counterparts. The example given was playing Super Mario Bros. Start to finish using warp zones, which is how I usually play Super Mario Bros. Anyway. I'm really looking forward to seeing what sort of twist they can cook up for these, and I especially love the attention to detail. There's a classified information guide that gives you tips for each challenge, and it's styled exactly like the old Nintendo Power magazine section of the same name. And survival mode looks awesome too, although I was a lot more excited before I went back and rewatched it and realized you're racing against ghost data, not actual live players. Maybe someday I'll experience something like my dearly departed Super Mario 35 again. But it won't be today. But still, this looks like an utterly lovely package with a whole lot of love and care put into it. And maybe it's just wistful thinking, but the fact that they specified this is the NES edition has to mean... right? Come on.
Number 4.
The first few Mario and Luigi games flew completely under my radar. I've still never played them. The last few were so overstuffed with constant and never-ending tutorials that I couldn't stick with them. I've been playing this game for 14 hours! I know how Dreamy Luigi works! But there's a reason I was so excited about Dream Team that I went out and bought this Special Edition 3DS, and that was because of its predecessor. Bowser's Inside Story got its hooks in me so fast and so deep that it made my head spin. I loved that game. I loved it so much I did something I almost never do for RPGs and replayed it all the way through again just a few years later. And while I might not have gotten into anything else they made, I was still very disappointed to see Alpha Dream close its doors a few years ago. Which made this trailer, the one that opened the Direct, feel absolutely surreal. I did not understand what exactly I was looking at. I'm not familiar enough with the series to know if I'm looking at a remake, but it's gotta be a remake. We got the Mario RPG remake, we got the Thousand Year Door remake, so how incredible is it that all 3 pillars of the RPG subseries would get such loving remakes in such short order? It can't be a brand new game, right? But it is. Mario & Luigi Brothership is the first original game in that subseries in almost 10 years. Not made by Alpha Dream, I know that much, but I am very interested to hear more about the dev team behind this one, and how much, if any, crossover they'll have. I'm also just impressed by the look of this game. Same as Mario RPG's remake brought that pre-rendered ACM style into full form, Brothership is taking the distinct flair of the Mario & Luigi series, that painterly 2D aesthetic, and brilliantly capturing it in a 3D engine. God, I'm glad we're past the days where 3D games are only allowed to look like 3D games, if you know what I mean. I don't know if this will finally be the game to bring me into the rest of the Mario & Luigi pantheon, but I know it has a real shot. Just, ease up on the tutorials, please. You remember when those were optional?
Number 3.
On paper, I should love fighting games, and I do. But I'm one of those people who suffers from that malady where you and your friends get into a new fighter and you're all having a good time, and then 2 days later you're smoking them so hard that they never want to play it with you again. But you're still light years away from being able to put up a fight against anybody who is actually good at it. I love competition. I love challenging myself and pushing my limits against other players. But I'm too much of an extrovert to usually get too much out of the anonymity of online gaming. So if there is one distinct period in gaming history that I really regret the fact that I missed, it's the glory days of the arcade. I remember being at the mall arcade when I was maybe 7 years old and getting absolutely obliterated by a teenager who was at least twice my size and twice my age. But by the time I caught up to him, the arcade was pretty much dead. Few series captured this bygone era more than Marvel vs. Capcom. I had the original game on the Dreamcast as a kid, because I had Mega Man naturally, and I loved messing around with it, but it took another quarter century before I really started to appreciate these games. I've only really dug into them in about the past year. Meaning that not only did I miss the original release of most of these games, I missed that brief window where they were previously re-released. And given what a sticky wicket it must be to untangle the Marvel license these days, I'm even more shocked for this than I am for the last entry. Marvel vs. Capcom, its sequel, all the games that led up to it, and some Punisher game I've never heard of, are all coming back. And I'm not missing out this time.
Number 2.
When the scene opened up on a pan-in shot of this treehouse, my brain already knew what I was looking at. But my body and my heart and my soul all reacted like I was seeing a brand new game. I sat up, I pumped my fist, I yelled! It was just so nice to see him again. It turns out that when you've been starving for over a decade, even reheated leftovers taste pretty damn good. DK fans aren't the only ones who know that, are we? Actually, I've always been a big fan of leftovers. Donkey Kong Country Returns, the game that brought the Big Ape back to the top of the mountain and flung him over the moon back in 2010, has itself returned for the second time. But speaking of being over the moon, for the moment we're in right now, DKC Returns HD was exactly what I was expecting, and exactly what I was hoping for. I've been hoping for it for years. The original version of DKC Returns was, in the eyes of a lot of people I know, held back by its reliance on Waggle. I never minded it, but I'd never deny that it was a detriment. The 3DS port a few years later dropped the Waggle and added an easy mode, but it also cut the frame rate in half and cut the resolution a lot more than that. So it was always natural to imagine how much could be gained if it ever got a Switch port, just by combining the best aspects of both. But if it ever did happen, my biggest and brightest wish, that wasn't going to be a deal breaker because it just seemed a little too pie in the sky, was that it would include the exclusive bonus world that was until this point stuck on the 3DS. Well, guess what? DKC Returns HD does.
I prayed for this and it happened.
With that, I can be completely positive now that what we're getting is the definitive version of a landmark game that's gotten a bit overshadowed in recent years. And with this, we have all 5 Donkey Kong Country games on one system. But let's put this into perspective. DKC returned 14 years ago. 14 years before that, the last Donkey Kong Country game on the Super Nintendo was released. That means that this game is exactly as nostalgic for some adults as the Super NES trilogy was for us. And props to them for being hardcore enough to get anywhere with it when they were kids, because the Retro Studios DK games were decidedly not for beginners. But I don't think this is just happening for yesterday's kids. And I don't think this is just happening for us kids of a few yesterdays ago. I think that more than anybody else, Returns is returning again for today's kids. The kids who saw the Mario movie, which weirdly put so much spotlight on Donkey Kong, his extended cast, his iconography. The kids who helped make Donkey Kong, a series that hasn't had a new game in a decade. One of the top 5 fastest growing brands in gaming last year. The kids who need to know who the Tiki Tak tribe are before they ride a roller coaster, set inside a section of a theme park that is themed entirely around Donkey Kong next year. I prayed for this and it happened. And I really think, I really hope, I really want to believe that what we're seeing right now is the start of something that'll rival anything Donkey Kong has ever done before. But, no matter how much I believe, I don't think a remake could ever eclipse this.
It's number 1.
What a difference a generation makes. 2017, the Nintendo Switch had just come out. This channel had just found its audience. And honestly, I was a very different person back then. When I think about who I was and where I was and what I was doing and What the world was like in 2017, it really does feel like a generation ago. But one generation is how long we've been waiting for Metroid Prime 4. 7 years ago we got a logo, and for 7 years, that logo is all we've had. But now we can see it. Now we have something tangible to anticipate. Now we can start to know Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. I don't even know what to say. At least based on what I can glean from the trailer, I appreciate how germane and genuine it seems. For all the changes and refinements the industry has been through, I don't think it's going to streamline away the unique feel of Metroid Prime. First-person shooters soft controller aim as best as they ever could, decades ago, but Prime 4 still has that lock-on, because it is not a first-person shooter. But while the gameplay portions of this trailer stick to the basics, I really can't wait to see what new innovations and mechanics they build on top of this. For as bombastic and exciting as the bulk of the trailer is, I think my favorite part is that flyover shot at the end. It reassures me that retro studios, regardless of who's working there these days, they still get it. Oh, and obviously the whole thing looks incredible too. So incredible that some are raising suspicions over whether it's even actually running on 2017 Switch hardware. And maybe that says something. Metroid Prime 4 is real, but it doesn't really feel real. At least not yet. When I'm regular hyped for a game, I'm just hyped. I'm glad it's happening, I'm looking forward to it, but when it doesn't feel real, I know from experience that means that I'm so appropriately beyond hyped that I need time to process it. But I will. It's gonna hit me. And before it does, I'm gonna make you guys a promise. When this game comes out in 2025, as long as I'm able, I'm gonna make it my priority to critique it. I'm not gonna give it time to sink in, I'm not gonna give it a few years and get some distance and let my hype die down. I intend to make a video about this game based on my first playthrough of it. Honestly, I've had an intro to that video in mind for 7 years, and it might not be what you were expecting, but I've waited long enough. We've waited long enough. And, hang on, let me check. Yep, I still can't believe our waiting is almost over. But while Prime 4 may be the game from the Nintendo Direct I'm most excited about, it is not actually the game revealed during all of these summer events I'm most excited about. Nah. That honor goes to a game that was announced, and 30 minutes later, I already had 2 completely different friend groups making plans to play it together when it comes out. You know what time it is? It's Morphin' Time! And Morphin' Time is all the time! Dude, that FOMO Mode 7 is freaking sick! Oh, gee, do you guys think they'll put Tommy in this one? God, I love pixel art! God, I love 16-bit! God, I love beat-em-ups! Thank you guys for watching. You keep geeking, I'll keep critiquing, and now it's actually Astrobot.